I'm trying to say like hello and welcome to my Blender tutorial. I don't know if that's coming across though, so I always miff that last note. Anyways, hi, welcome to Blender. Let's pick up where we left off. So, we've got ourselves a traffic cone. It's looking pretty good, but it could look better. I believe in us. So, we are going to start sculpting, which is a lot like modeling, except for that it's more specific and you'll need a lot more information. With the cone as it currently is, you can see that we have like a pretty sparse number of polygons and faces on it. Like, this is frankly nothing. This is absolutely, I mean, it's relatively high poly as far as like a traffic cone would normally go, but like as far as we're gonna take it, this is peanuts. And you can tell, like, you can see like these squares, they got lots of space on them, you know. This is still like just a very general form of what we're trying to make, and we're gonna take it down to the specific. So that would mean applying our modifiers, because you can't really sculpt unless you have like a lot of data to work with, and right now we don't have any data. We have this data, which, you know, it might look like a lot, but it isn't, not yet. So in order to apply our modifiers, we're going to have to go over to the modifier tab, and we are going to press a button. But we should wait on doing that, because this is the kind of thing that you can't get back. I've said a couple of times that modifiers are non-destructive, but this does not apply when you apply them. So currently, like, a modifier is something that you can turn on and off, and it can change things. But once you apply it, you can't really turn it off. So before we apply the modifiers, we need to make sure that our cone is in a very good rough, like, it is in basically the shape that we want it to be. And I feel like there are still some room for improvement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to look at the bottom, and I'm going to look at the bottom, numpad 7, numpad 9. And I am just going to like select all of these faces over here, and I'm going to bring them in a little bit, because cones actually from the bottom, if I like pull up a Google image search real quick, don't mind me, just Google image searching, https://google.com, or actually it's like images.google.com. And then I'm going to remove all of the incriminating. You can see that like a lot of these have some kind of support structure going on in the bottom to make sure that it doesn't tip over. The ones that I had at home had one that looked more like this, yeah, except for that it was like orange. But it's got like a long line here, and as you can see, the bottom is indented slightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bottom, I'm going to select all of that by going into the face select over here. And I am just going to push that in with E for extrude. And cool, now we've got the bottom ever so slightly indented. You can bring it in more if you want by pressing G and bringing it along the Z axis. So something like that is fine, that's great. Love the way that looks, yeah. Big fan. And also, we need to take care of the middle of it, because the middle is looking a little bit sharp, and that's not quite the way you want it to look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, still in face select by the way, I'm going to pick up all of the edges of the middle. I'm going to select the tops of this to make sure that I'm not accidentally grabbing the wrong faces, because that might happen. And then I am going to extrude them, right click so that they stay in the same place, and scale it inwards a little bit. So that way we've got a nice little base for it with a little bit of a base for the cone as well. So cool, we've got that. Now I think I'm ready to move on with my cone. So before I apply the modifiers, I am going to go over here to the editor thing over here. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to, again, modifiers are destructive, so the absolute safest thing I can do is save a backup. I haven't actually been saying save in the videos, but I've been writing it in the comment in the description because I like wanted it to be present all throughout without like putting a watermark. But yeah, save obviously, and then right click over here to new collection, and I'm going to call this one backup. And then I am going to click on reflective stripe and traffic cone. You can do this either in here or in here by selecting one and shift selecting the other. And I am, you know what, this would be a good opportunity. I'm going to first select the reflective stripe, then the rest of the traffic cone, and I'm going to press Ctrl+P. And what that's going to do is that is going to parent the stripe to the traffic cone. That's not important now, but it'll be important later. Basically, I'm just going to set this to parent to object, and then if I move the traffic cone, the stripe will move with it, whereas previously the stripe would move independently. So cool. I've got these two parented. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take traffic cone and the stripe. I'm going to press Shift D. I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to drop it into the backup. And the reason I'm also going to take reflective stripe and drop it into the backup as well, so they're together. So cool. Now I'm going to go over here. I'm going to turn this checkbox off, which means that that is no longer there. And now I've got my backed up versions. I am ready to go. So I'm going to go over here into the modifier tab. I'm going to press apply, which is also Ctrl+A. So I will apply it. And then I'm going to click on the reflective stripe. And before we apply this, I want to make a point. You need to apply the modifiers in the order that they're in, because it does matter. If I move the smooth up before the solidify, it'll change the order in which it happens. The solidify will happen after the smooth, so the solidify won't be smoothed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the subdivision, I'm going to apply that first, then solidify, apply, and then smooth, apply. And there you go. We've got now a whole bunch of little vertices all ready to be sculpted. So next, what I'm going to do is I am going to head over into the sculpting workplace, which you can get into one of multiple ways. You could either Control Tab into sculpt mode, or you can go over here to sculpting, which is a completely different workspace with a completely different user interface. So each brush off to the side has its own thing. I encourage you to play around with it in its time. They all have their thing going on. They all have settings that you can fiddle with over here to make it look nicer the way that you want. But the big important thing is if you press F, you will be able to resize your brush. So give me a second to try to make screencast keys show up here. So if I press F, and I move my mouse to make it really big, and then I click, now my brush is huge, and if I move my mouse to make it small, now my brush is smaller. So we have this mesh here. If you draw on it, it will deform it, just like that. You can press, regular clicking is going to make it go up. If you control click, it will make it go down by and large. Some brushes will like invert this for no reason. I don't know why, it really annoys me. But yeah, let's here. So like if I just make a bit of a deformation and then I press control, you can see that the things really have deformed. So sculpting is basically the same thing as edit mode, except for that you have slightly different tools, and these tools are pretty useful, in fact, when it comes to making really minor alterations to stuff that help it, like, you know, bring the realism or the stylization to an extra level. It's really good. Sometimes it's really useful, sometimes not particularly. So in regards to applying this to the traffic cone, we have to look into how a traffic cone would physically look. What things would affect the physical appearance of a traffic cone? There's the manufacturing process, the fact that like it's a sheet of rubber that's like stretched over a cone. So maybe on like the inside of the cone, here I'm gonna press period so I can go in closer. On the inside of the cone, we're gonna have like stretch marks or something, and then on the bottom we're gonna have those like things, you know, the support structures, and sometimes, you know, they'll have seams along the edges if they're made from like pressing two things together, and you know, there might be imperfections in the mold or imperfections in the plastic that would cause it to you know, react poorly to the mold in some areas. Just kind of go wild with it. What I'm going to do is, by and large, one of my favorite tools in this is Elastic Deform. I use it quite a bit for like models that I don't have to deal with, just because I like the way that you can push things along. You can go up here if you want and press X or Y or Z if you're so inclined, and what it will do is it will actually deform things in multiple areas. I usually only go for like X and Y because I think that by and large that's just kind of the best ones. If you go with Z, you're kind of you're being a little weird with it. And it's okay to be weird. Like, it's pretty cool to be weird. I have some friends who are weird, and they're very cool. I like hanging out with them a lot. But I had this friend in university called Callum, and one of my favorite anecdotes about him was he was walking along the street. He was like, I don't know, like he's a little bit older than me, but not that much older. He's like 23 now or something, so he would have been like 21 or something around the time. He was walking along the street and he saw some like teenagers knock over a traffic cone, and his instinct, his like thing to say was, how much spare time do you have on your hands that you're gonna do stuff like this? By the way, control clicking to go down underneath the traffic cone and like raise up these segments. And that just, I don't know, there's such a powerful like dad energy coming off of that story, that his first instinct is to be like, what world is this where you have got the time to do something like that? Like, not even bearing the considerations of, like, you know, they're kid. It takes no time to do that, actually, Callum. Like, it is one of the easiest things that you can do. Like, just knocking over a trap. Sure, they're designed to not be knocked over, but, like, if you're determined, you're on a bicycle, like, you're gonna know how to hit it. And then Callum goes and, like, he picks the traffic cone up, flips it back over like the good Samaritan that he is. And I guess there's no point to this story. It's just, you know, sometimes you just want a little bit of normal. So I'm just gonna kind of play around and make a lot of very like minor and subtle changes, just kind of brushing it, flattening it, unflattening it in certain areas, and just kind of, you know, maybe I'll go to the smooth and I'll smooth out the flattens, and just in general, you need to make like a lot of weird little subtle touches to make it look like it has realistically lived in the real world. It's been dented, it's been, you know, battered and damaged a little bit. It's like off to one side, a car hit it once. I'm gonna raise the strength of this brush a little bit. I feel like I've taken this one up a little bit too much, so I'm just gonna 7-9. Hey, wouldn't it be great if I could like pop open another window and look at this from the top? Well, guess what? You can. I'm going to go down into the corner, and I am going to pull this off to the side, which is something that you can do, and all of a sudden I've got a new viewport that I can look at. And this is, it doesn't have to be a 3D viewport. If you want, you could make it like another version of the properties if you just go over there, or you can make it a graph editor or something like that. But 3D viewport is what I want to look at, just to make sure that like it looks okay from the profile. What I'm doing looks okay from the profile on the top. So that's what I'm just going to do. I'm going to set one on profile, and then I'm going to figure out like, okay, which one am I editing here? Is it this one? No. Is it that one? No. This. No. And so after a little bit of petting and fooling around, you will eventually have yourself a nice beat up looking traffic cone. Let's compare how that looks to the original, and yeah, okay, this looks a lot more realistic. It looks a lot more stylized. It looks like it's, you know, lived its life out in the world. So I feel like I'm ready to move on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click this little down arrow here. I am going to then hover over this to move over to editing the reflective stripe. And I don't know about you guys, but I always feel like reflective stripes are like, at least in my experience, reflective stripes are made of some kind of fabric or plastic that's like added on in a fabric-y way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over down here to the cloth brush. I'm just going to pull it a little bit. The cloth brush is one of the like best additions to Blender as of late. It is just this incredible tool that gives you a deformation like nothing else. It genuinely is incredible. I have no idea how something like this came to be, but I'm so grateful for it. So one of the other things to note about, this is a very banter heavy episode, I guess. One of the other things to note about sculpting in Blender is that you can completely and without much of an issue do this with a drawing tablet, or without if you want. I'm not doing it with a drawing tablet. I very rarely do it with a drawing tablet, but if you see up here, it does actually respond to like pen sensitivity. So if you want to, you know, fiddle around with your drawing tablet, then that's something that you can do. If you want more resolution as well, you can enable something called Dynotomo. I call it Dynotopo. It's actually Dyntopo, but that feels wrong to say, which is dynamic topology, which basically you tick it and all of a sudden it'll start creating more triangles every time you do it. I'm not going to do that for this model because I do not think that this model needs it. And it's not particularly good for things that are going to be animated because it creates a lot of triangles, and in animation you're going to want squares. However, it is useful for certain projects. So now I think I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to go into edit mode and see if there's anything that I want to change. You know, maybe not particularly. Let's head back to the traffic cone. Is this good? Am I good with this? I think I am. I'm going to head back into the layout and I'm going to take a look, and it looks like there's a little bit of like Z fighting, or Z fighting, which is the name of one of my favorite fighting games, but also the name of this phenomenon where as you scroll around you can kind of see things clip into each other. That's basically these two things inherit the same space and one of them wants dominance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add in another solidify modifier on top of the old solidify modifier, and I'm just gonna maybe crank the, no, no, that's too much. Something like that maybe, and then yeah, there we go. There's now the Z fighting isn't quite as noticeable. There's like another layer underneath which makes it look kind of weird, but I'm not particularly fussed about that. Maybe this traffic cone they just had to add multiple layers to or something. If it really does bother you, what you can do is you can go into edit mode, you can get this to snap to face, and then turn on this magnet and a little bit of proportional editing. And then what you can do is you can pick this up and drag it, and it will start snapping to the face. I'm going to lower proportional editing to like a reasonable area over here, and I'm just going to drag this along until it snaps to the face. And if you don't want to do the extra modifier, then you can just like kind of stick to this part, which I might should have done in the first place, but there are always multiple solutions to things in Blender, and I think that's part of the fun of the program. So something like that, and maybe I'll go up and do it to the top as well, just to make sure that nothing's getting a little too silly. Up here, there you go. We've got ourselves a nice looking, sort of beat up traffic cone. And next, in the final episode of this particular level, we're going to talk about how to render it, how to make it look nice on your computer, and the final stuff. So thank you very much for joining me for this. I hope that this was informative, and leave. Why did you expect me to finish my sentence? You know I can't do that. You've watched like 4 of these so far. That's like, what, over an hour of me. You know I can't finish. I don't know what I'm gonna say when I go into a sentence. Like, I just sort of find my way through it, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not, but you don't actually have to be here for me to finish it. Like, you can just click out of the video as soon as you get what you need. There's nothing. Oh my god. I swear, every day. Every freaking day. Go! What do you, I'm gonna start working, like, I'm working now. Here, like, I have to learn a bass solo. You really want to watch me practice a bass solo, get it wrong a whole bunch of times?